Hey, everybody. So great to have you on this morning or evening, wherever you are around the world. It's a great blessing to be together. My name is Zane, and I am going to get started this morning and invite Dr. Raymond in just a moment to share some more information. And Dr. Liddy, we are very, very grateful and blessed to have them share great information with you today. I'll tell you a little bit about us and our company. I'm going to share my screen. I'm one of the principal founders of Sukavu, and Sukavu is who's hosting this call today. We are a company that's been making and manufacturing products now for quite a few years, but we just started Sukavu 2.5 short years ago. So we haven't been around the brand very long, but we've been manufacturing products for quite some time. And our goal is to help people live better lives. And we do that through having fantastic products. We have 4 core missions. The first is to make great products, and we want to know them from seed to shelf. We want to share great information. That's why we're on today. And that's why we have wonderful doctors who can come and present great information to you, particularly about diabetes today. And to share that information with everybody that we can. We want to build lifelong relationships, and we want to serve other people. Those are our 4 commitments at Sukavu. This is my family. This is why I do what I do. I love them. They're incredible. And I first started manufacturing products for my wife to help her. She's this one right here, just in case you can't tell. She's that one right there. But we have 8 kids, and we like most of them. I think that's fair to say. If you have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a picture of our farm and where we grow our hemp. This is some very important things to us. We want to make sure our products are very bioavailable, that they don't have any THC, so we can ship them worldwide, and that they're lab tested. And we spend a lot of time working on our products. Dr. Raymond, I know, is going to talk about we'll talk about this cannabinoid, CBG. We're going to talk about CBD. And I know he's going to talk about some products. A lot of people have heard of THC. All of our products do not have any of this in it. That's completely removed. That's the product that gets you high. That's what everybody knows. Oh, it gets you high. So you can feel confident whenever you take any of our products that have these other cannabinoids that you're not going to get any of this. And as a result, you won't get high, you won't fail a drug test, and you won't lose your job. So that's important to us. Again, Dr. Raymond's going to spend some time talking about diabetes today, but cannabinoids really help your whole endocannabinoid system. And he's going to spend some time talking about this particular product right here. So I'm going, and as well as our drops. I'm going to end it there because I know you didn't want to hear from me. You really want to hear from the experts, the doctors that have done all the research. I've personally spent over 1,000 hours studying and researching NIH studies and studies by doctors. And I know Dr. Raymond, Dr. Liddy, and a lot of the doctors have also spent lots of time. And we're grateful for them sharing their wisdom and experience. So I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Raymond. And I've seen the presentation. It is incredible. I would say this is a recording, and we'll share this on YouTube later, but if you want to take notes, I think it would be super smart. So Dr. Raymond, it's a blessing to have you. Your research is incredible, and I will turn the time over to you.
Zane, it's
yes.
Dr. Liddy who's giving the presentation.
Oh, is Dr. Liddy going to do it? I'm a doofus. I apologize.
He's making the presentation first.
Okay, so Dr. Liddy, who is, I mean, her credentials are off the charts. I mean, from Harvard, one of the leading endocrinologists in the world. She's amazing, amazing. So Dr. Liddy, I'll turn it over to you. And then we look forward to learning from you today. So thank you so much for helping us share this message. And I think the screen is available to you if you want to share anything, Dr. Liddy.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And it's going to be in the form of a slideshow. So let's see.
Perfect.
So I'm sorry that I am on call this week and it has been a little crazy, but we will It seems like it's a lot, but we will try to cruise through the slides quite rapidly. And so my discussion today will be on how to manage diabetes and metabolic syndrome using cannabidiol. And as Zane already shared, this is not the molecule that makes you high. This is CBD. And we also have Sucralose nitric oxide boosting agents and also natural ways to control diabetes. I hope everybody can hear me. All right. And so just to talk about the philosophy of Sukavu, I've just learned about this company about a month and a half ago or so, about a month ago. But I like the fact that they have their own farm, they produce their own products, everything is quality controlled. We know what we are getting, and that is a good thing. It's not a strange product that you buy out of nowhere and you don't know where it's grown. So the products are supreme and really are well refined and cleared of THC, which is really, really important. You don't want people taking your products and getting high or failing a drug test. That would be terrible. So it's uh, different components of CBD. All right. So just to talk about metabolic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke have been the leading causes of death since 2016. I know the pandemic hit in 2020 and resulted in a big shift of this graph. But if we took away the pandemic, these still remain the 3 top 10 causes of death in all nations. And in fact, the incidence of diabetes has increased worldwide. So if you look at this graph in Africa, most like sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 16 million in 2017, which was already a 48% increase.
Dr. Lin,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Can you make that bigger? Is there I think it's that button.
Let's see.
that
Let's see if I
maybe-
can make it big. So you can see what I'm showing you?
It's just small. I'm old.
Well,
My eyes aren't. I think it's
Let's see
if
if
you-
Like
I
a full screen, is there?
yeah. It might be that because I think you're seeing it from a presenter view. So
Yep,
maybe
that
go
one.
to
okay,
no. I
let's
think it
see.
Oh,
Let's- So let's see display settings.
Maybe. Nope.
So
Go.
is this better?
Yeah, probably yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yeah.
All right, very good. Okay, wonderful. Okay, excellent. So looking at this slide, everywhere in the whole universe, diabetes incidence has increased, sedentarity, technology, all of those are contributing, and the kinds of diets we consume have really changed the distribution of the diseases that we see. So talking about diabetes, we'll talk about insulin secretion at this point. Insulin secretion is secreted in the islet cells in your pancreas. And so this is your pancreas, which is this organ right here. And it releases enzymes in the second part of your duodenum, which is here, which helps with digestion. But that's the exocrine part of your pancreas. The endocrine part of your pancreas is what produces hormones like insulin, like glucagon, in the islet beta cells. So let's see if I can move this a little bit. So if you look at this screen right here, in the islet cells, you have alpha cells, beta cells, and exocrine pancreatic cells that produce the digestive enzymes. The beta cells produce insulin. Amen. Other hormones produced in the pancreas are glucagon and somatotropin. So it's a very active gland, very important for digestion and for diabetes control, because without insulin, you cannot drive glucose into your cells. And so with diabetes, what happens is that you have high blood glucose readings, either because you have difficulties in handling the insulin that you're producing, which is a state called insulin resistance, or your pancreas has failed. In general, it is really because your pancreas has failed to some degree, because to have high blood sugars, if you're a normal weight person, you would have lost about 75% of your beta cell function, the cells that produce insulin. But if you're obese and you have insulin resistance, at 50% of pancreatic beta cell loss, you can have signs of diabetes. And so the net result of diabetes is high blood sugars. And I will work on this. So high blood sugars cause an increase in certain molecules, diacylglycerol and PKC. All right. So these are pro-inflammatory proteins, and they're accompanied by a decrease in endothelial nitric oxide synthesis. And because of that, the net result is that you have a lot of insulin resistance, you have inflammation, and increased free radicals. These free radicals are very destructive. We also call free radicals reactive oxygen species. All right. And so with insulin resistance, the major problem in diabetes management is, number one, when you have insulin resistance, it means that you're making insulin and your body is not utilizing the insulin properly because of obesity, fatty liver, you're overweight or obese. It creates some resistance to taking in insulin into your cells. And so because you have insulin resistance, you need much more insulin to control your sugars. So your pancreas has to work super hard to lower your blood glucose readings. And insulin does not only cause your blood sugar levels to come down, but it also makes you store fats. It makes you accumulate fats. So if you see people on insulin, they tend to put on weight because insulin makes you store fat. So that is something that a lot of doctors don't tell their patients, because then it might discourage them from taking insulin. But the truth is that when you need insulin, you need it. And so I won't ask any of you to stop your insulin use. It is necessary. We won't give you insulin unless you really need it. But the insulin resistance causes high insulin levels and high blood sugars because you need much more insulin to lower your sugars, but also storage of fat in your body. So the second thing about diabetes pathophysiology as a result of insulin resistance is that at the level of your pancreas beta cells, you have transporters that transport glucose in and out of the cells. And you have receptors to which insulin attach. So there is thoughts that in diabetes patients, there is also transporters, translocations that also, that lack of the translocations cause low glucose uptake into the cells. So it could be a transporter deficiency or deficiency in the translocation that should happen to get the glucose into your cells. So some of those transporters are GLUT4. I know this looks a little complicated. I really want to make it a little simpler than this next time, just so that people can understand. But if you understand that the key is that your body needs insulin to drive your glucose into the cells. And if you have insulin resistance, you need more insulin to be able to do that. And the more insulin you have and the higher your blood sugars, the more you have increased inflammatory markers, which are destructive, and free radicals, or what we also call reactive oxygen species, that are increased. They're pro-inflammatory, cause a lot of inflammation in your body, the net result is weight gain, pro-inflammatory conditions, which are destructive to your body. So this is a little summary of this slide that we are seeing here. And then, as I mentioned earlier, fatty liver or fatty infiltration of your liver and pancreas impairs the ability of your liver to be sensitive to insulin. And so people who have fatty liver also have a hard time with high blood sugars in the morning because of insulin resistance. All right, very good. So I hope that it's a little clear. It's a crowded slide, so we'll make it better next time. So insulin resistance, obviously, is not helpful for the body, just as we said, because of all the metabolic derangements that come with it, and impaired nitric oxide synthesis, which it causes. Now, nitric oxide intracellular nitric oxide is really important. First, at the level of the blood vessel to help improve blood flow in the blood vessels. So your arteries and my arteries have cells that line the interior of those arteries that produce nitric oxide. And so if you imagine that high blood sugars causes impairment of this nitric oxide synthesis, that is a big problem because that's what helps with blood flow through your arteries. So diabetes is not good. And that's they say diabetes causes even vascular disease. It's called a cardiovascular risk factor. It causes hardening of your arteries. So where are we heading with all these nitric oxide things and vascular things? Because it is bad for you when you have diabetes. It is really important to be able to improve insulin resistance when you have diabetes in order to reduce inflammation, in order to reduce cardiovascular disease, in order to reduce changes in your arteries, which we call microangiopathic complications of diabetes, including eye disease, where you have bleeders in your eyes. People who have diabetes know it, they have bleeders in their eyes because of these small vascular changes in your eyes. And then there are also bigger vascular changes. As we said, you can easily have heart attack when you have diabetes. And then there is also, because of all the inflammation, you accelerate aging, and then you also have increased dementia and neurodegenerative diseases. And so really, really important to reduce oxidative stress. So I hope it is getting clearer and clearer where we are heading, why diabetes is bad for you, why high insulin levels, circulating insulin levels are a little bad, not really good because of the storage of fats, why fatty liver is not good for you, and also why it is important to reduce inflammation, because high blood sugars causes a whole cascade of reactions that promotes inflammation in your body and makes you release all these free radicals and pro-inflammatory proteins that can cause dementia, heart disease, kidney damage, eye damage, the things that we see in diabetes, and even nerve damage. Okay. So, all right. So this is again a little schematic of how insulin binds to the insulin receptor. I have a little arrow that shows you where insulin binds in on the beta cell, the islet cells. It binds there and activates a series of reactions, and how glucose is transported in and out of the cell by translocation of these receptors on the surface of the cell. So it looks like a very scientific presentation, but I really want to make it simple, okay? And so our goal is to decrease the production of these free radicals. That is our goal as we approach management of diabetes. Okay, very good. So our nitric oxide booster is very important because it has, the Sucavo nitric oxide booster has arginine and citrulline, which are known precursors of nitric oxide. And we already mentioned that nitric oxide is produced in the endothelial cells, means that the cells that line your arteries, which we already mentioned, and also in the digestive system. So if we can understand that nitric oxide is important to improve insulin resistance, which we don't want in our bodies because of all the side effects of insulin resistance, then we really want this product that boosts nitric oxide production. So do we now see how it is linking, one is linking to the other? So number two, we mentioned that nitric oxide is important to prevent hardening of the arteries. So we have arginine and citrulline, which boost nitric oxide production, and so should help reduce some of those vascular changes that we see in our arteries. And so that is how nitric oxide really is important in the management of diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Okay, so that said, we have seen the role of nitric oxide. We have seen that the Sukavu products have two important nitric oxide boosters, arginine and citrulline. And that is why we really want to have those products if we have obesity, if we have diabetes or pre-diabetes. In fact, you want to act early. You don't want to wait for damage to happen before you try to reverse it. I would recommend that everybody over the age of 40, if it naturally starts having decreased nitric oxide production in their endothelial cells, and should try to start boosting the nitric oxide to prevent some of those atherosclerotic changes that happen in your arteries. Okay, so we want to go to CVD and diabetes. All right, we have spoken about nitric oxide, we have spoken about Sukavu. Now CVD itself is really important because it acts on the endocannabinoid system and maintains the functional balance of the pancreas and regulates pancreatic function. So CBD is really interesting because it has so many actions, and there is a chart that Zane shows always in his presentations. He didn't show it today, but it's really important to have that chart before you because you can see the effect of the different, whether it's CBG that you want or CBD that you want or CBG plus CBD that you want. Really important. Like my dad has a lot of heart disease, hypertension, and prostate cancer. So what I'm giving him is CBG. You understand? So now when it comes to diabetes, you want CBD because it maintains the functional balance of the pancreas and helps regulate its function. And some studies are out there showing that CBD actually suppresses the autoimmune response to diseases, different kinds of diseases. And we know that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disorder. So if you know that, there's a strong family history of type 1 diabetes, and you can start using some of these things just because statistically, those that have, in fact, anyone with autoimmune diseases can take it. And if you have one autoimmune disease, you can have another one. So people who have, for example, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they can develop type 1 diabetes, or they can develop autoimmune hepatitis, or they can develop vitiligo, where your skin color just goes away, or they can develop celiac disease. Those are all autoimmune diseases, or rheumatoid arthritis, or lupus, things like that. So if you can see that, even though we are focused on diabetes, I just segue a little bit to point out to you that it's really important to use something that can modulate your immune system a little bit if you're prone to autoimmune disorders. And so in this situation, we are raising the point that it can help improve, especially in people who have type 1 diabetes with some residual pancreatic function, you should be on CBD. That would really help so that you don't destroy the rest of the beta cells that you have. Everybody, maybe people don't know the difference. So type 1 diabetes is the kind of diabetes that is produced because your body formed antibodies against your own pancreas. And so it destroyed your pancreas and because of an immune attack on your pancreas. And so automatically your pancreas fails more or less rapidly and you go on insulin. So there is an early onset type 1 diabetes, which you see in young people. And then there is a late onset type 1 diabetes, which you see in older people. These people have antibodies that destroy the pancreas, but it is a lower amount. So you see these people, they develop diabetes at the age of 30, 40. They're not that necessary, they're necessarily not obese, or they may be slightly overweight, but they are not responding typically to the medicines that we use to treat type 2 diabetes. And very often they quickly progress to needing insulin. And so for those kind of people, they will benefit from CBD because whatever is left of their beta cells, they can preserve using CBD products. So I hope that it's a little clear. So type 1 diabetes, there is the one that has very high antibodies. You see people, kids at the age of 2, at the age of 10 developing diabetes, they have the typical type 1. There's another one that is sometimes called 1.5 because it can masquerade as type 2, but then you quickly fail medication because your pancreas just gets destroyed gradually by these antibodies. That is the right person to get this kind of treatment because the CBD inhibits the autoimmune response in type 1 diabetes. So those are the different ways CBD can help in type 1 diabetes and also just in general regulating the functional balance of the pancreas and its function. It decreases inflammation, as we already heard earlier. It also regulates blood sugar readings just because it helps reduce insulin resistance. And so there was this study that had 4,700 diabetic patients. And when they used CBD, there was 17% reduction in insulin resistance. IR is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is what we already discussed earlier on in the presentation. And we already saw the negative effects of insulin resistance. And so CBD can reduce it by 17%. Somebody might say, well, it's not that big. It's everything actually counts. Every little bit counts in diabetes. The less insulin you need to manage your diabetes, if you're on insulin, the better it is. If you don't have diabetes, the less amount of insulin you need if you're obese to manage your sugars and control your sugars so they don't go high, the better it is for you. And so these are the two ways by which CBD can regulate your blood glucose levels, homeostasis, anti-inflammatory action on the pancreas, and also, as we said, slightly decreasing insulin resistance. Okay, so we could nicely end here because I think we've already made a case. These ones are very scientific talks, and we don't really want to go too much into that physiology because not everybody's a scientist on this forum, but we want you to be able to understand the basics. If you could understand the basics that we just discussed, then you would see why, number one, you want to take the Sukabo products, the nitric oxide booster that has the arginine and citrulline, and number two, you want to use CBD, even as an adjunct treatment to your diabetes. All right, so now CBD and obesity. CBD is really helpful as an appetite regulator in obese people, or in anyone actually. It helps promote weight loss and also regulates hunger. And because you're not as hungry, you're not eating too much as well. And it may help you lose weight more easily. I can say that since I started using this product, I've already lost 6 pounds. So that's already good for me because I really needed to lose like 30. It is gradually coming off. During this pandemic, it just wasn't shifting no matter what I was doing. But I weigh myself now every couple of days and I've noticed a gradual decline in my weight, which is different compared to before. So it does have fight weight. And if you're fighting weight indirectly, you're also fighting insulin resistance, and you're also you're also fighting diabetes. All right. So that is that. I will stop here because I don't want to go into too much physiology. I will not go into like the molecular basis for it because I'm sure that as soon as you finish this conference, you will not remember anything that I say. So no need wasting your time with that. All right. So we've spoken about CBD. We've spoken about insulin resistance. We've spoken about fatty liver. We've spoken about diabetes. And we've spoken about improvement in your weight because it helps regulate your hunger. And then we also learned about the role of the liver. Fatty liver is bad because it causes insulin resistance. And the truth is that the liver takes over from the pancreas when it is overwhelmed by storing excess glucose as fat. So for those of us who feed on milkshakes, or Dunkin' Donuts sweetened coffee, every extra sugar that you're not using, if your body is not burning that sugar and producing ATP, that is energy, if you're not active, you're not burning it up, you store that in your liver. You store it in your liver. So there's a liver storage form of glucose called glycogen. Then we also mentioned that insulin that increases as you're drinking all the sweet things also makes you store fat. So now you are overwhelming your system by storing fats in your body. Extra glucose just gets converted through an anaerobic pathway into fat. You store it, you accumulate fat. That is the truth. Ask any of us that is gaining a lot of weight, most of us do eat sugary things. And so if we can adjust how much storage of fat it happens in our liver, we will be able to improve our insulin resistance. All right. So going into a little bit of nutrition, I don't know if we need to go in, there's already 12:36, but in general, when it comes to nutritional things, the caloric density is really, really important. And so in general, we measure caloric density in how many calories are in 1 gram of a particular nutrient. So we know, for example, that in every 1 gram of sugar, you have 4 calories. In 1 gram of fat, you have 9 calories. So energy expenditure is really important. It doesn't mean that if you take in 1,200 calories in food, you have to exercise and burn 1,200 calories. That is a lie because every organ system also needs, uses glucose for metabolism and for energy production. So, but you need to be able to burn and out some of the things that you're eating so that you're not storing everything as fat. Then we also look at glycemic index. There are foods that are low in glycemic index, some are moderate in glycemic index, and some are high in glycemic index. High foods in glycemic index are just pure sugar. So if you take a glass of juice, you're taking pure sugar. That's a no-brainer. So moderate foods will be like complex, like rice, potatoes, things that your body has to still break down. But the net result is that it breaks it down into polysaccharides and monosaccharides, and it still gets converted into sugar. And the lower glycemic index is that it is more complex. So it's less likely to cause a big spike in your blood sugar. So for example, if you're going to take white bread versus rye bread or pumpernickel, white bread is more in sugar. It will be more like a moderate glycemic index, and pumpernickel or rye would be more like a lower glycemic index kind of bread. So it's just to give you an idea of some of the things that you pay attention to as you're trying to manage your weight, manage your metabolism, and also manage your diabetes or prediabetes. So healthy foods, when you combine low caloric density foods, less fats, if depending on the kind of physiology that you have. There are people who are pre-diabetic and diabetic, you should be on lower carbs, all right? There are people who go keto diets and they have high fats but no carbs at all, which is something that I never do, because the minute you change, you start accumulating back everything that it's like your body craves those things and holds onto it so fast. You reverse really rapidly. And so I always say just eat a healthy, balanced meal and choose meals that are lower calorie have a lower caloric density and also a lower glycemic index. So I would, some people like juicing, for example. So to be able to get a glass of orange juice, which is 8 ounces, you will need to squeeze about 3 oranges. But if you add 1 orange, you would feel satisfied because you're eating with the pulp and the skin, and not the outer skin, like the inside skin. And so with that, you feel fuller and you're reducing your calories indirectly. So I recommend against just juicing fruits and drinking it. It may look so good, but you're pumping into your body very high uh, 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 sugar. And so if you're going to do any like smoothies, that's different. You can use our protein powder. The Sukavu protein powder is excellent. In fact, you put it in there with your fruit, maybe a couple of strawberries, blueberries. Berries are always better because they are richer in antioxidants. And so put that in your Sukavu protein powder. And then you can even use like a 30 calorie per serving almond milk. If you do that as a shake, I can guarantee you, even if you add like a scoop of the greens, I tried the greens, fantastic. I was not hungry for 6 hours. So little tips that you can use to make yourself better. So I think I've already made a case, and I will stop here. We can share some of these slides. Low caloric foods, low calorie density foods are there. These are all nutrition things that you can learn. We said moderate caloric density. You can see bread right there. Interestingly, salmon is there because it's also a fatty fish, that it's there. And rice, crackers, cheese, all of those are moderate caloric foods. High caloric foods is your pure juice and all the cookies and chocolates that we all enjoy. All right, so let's end here. Thank you all for your attention. And I will pass it now over to Dr. Raymond at this time. Maybe we can answer questions at the end.
Yeah, first of all, too, I'm going to jump in before Dr. Raymond does and say, wow, thank you. Thank you. That was awesome and so much needed and very understandable too. Like, I love it because it was easy to understand. Sometimes, you know, like you said, you get into that mode of science and it zooms over everybody's head, but I loved it. It was very simple. And quite frankly, right now, diabetes is a big issue, right? We don't eat very well. Like you said, the Dunkin' Donuts and the, you know, the amazing coffee. So
Absolutely.
Dr. Raymond, I'm excited to hear this in French.
Thank you, Dr. Lydie. Thank you, Mr. Zen, for this very good presentation. I will try to give something in French concerning diabetes. Let me share the screen now. OK. Alors je voudrais saluer tous les participants à cette présentation. Avant moi, il y a eu M. Zen qui a mis en place, qui a parlé des bases même, des fondements de Sukavu, les principes même. Et puis, il y a le docteur Lydie, qui est spécialiste en la matière, qui a donné toutes les explications vraiment pour que tout le monde comprenne ce que c'est que le diabète et comment ces produits, dont l'oxyde nitrique, le cannabidiol, pouvaient accompagner la prise en charge du diabète. Alors moi, je vais vous parler simplement de comment manager le diabète et le syndrome métabolique en utilisant le cannabidiol, le North Boost de Sukavu et les moyens naturels. Alors, il faut dire que Sokavu, c'est une philosophie. Je ne veux pas reprendre ce qu'elle a dit. Ce n'est pas seulement un mode de vie, c'est une philosophie. Et les produits sont de qualité et de première priorité. Voilà. On peut dire que les causes de les 10 premières causes de mortalité dans le monde, ça c'est un schéma qui date de 2016. On voit la position du diabète là, c'est vraiment, on est là en 7e position, c'est quand même important. Alors, la répartition mondiale, le docteur Lydie l'a déjà dit, en Afrique, au sud Sahara, l'augmentation sera de 41 millions de diabétiques en 2045 si rien n'est fait. Vous voyez que de plus en plus, nous occidentalisons notre mode de vie. Avant, c'était une maladie qui était beaucoup plus en Occident, mais on voit que l'occidentalisation du mode de vie fait que la fréquence de cette maladie s'accroît en Afrique. Alors, je ne reviens pas sur la description brillante que le docteur Lydia a fait sur le pancréas dans sa portion exocrine et endocrine. Vous avez vu donc que c'est à ce niveau que sont produits l'insuline. Donc, le pancréas, donc, il y a plusieurs types de cellules dans le pancréas et vous savez, vous voyez, comme vous voyez qu'elle a dit, la partie exocrine, elle est là, et il y a aussi une partie endocrine. Donc, voilà. Alors, qu'est-ce que le diabète? Le docteur Lydie l'a dit tout à l'heure déjà. Je vais quand même compléter, reprendre en français, en disant que quand nous consommons le sucre, on a tendance à augmenter le taux de sucre, la glycémie dans le sang, le sucre. Et tout à l'heure, vous avez parlé aussi des aliments à haut index glycémique qui ont tendance à augmenter très rapidement le sucre dans le sang. Mais il faut dire que la réponse du pancréas ne produit pas assez d'insuline. Ça, c'est une explication. Ou encore, l'insuline ne va pas parvenir à stimuler la pénétration du glucose dans la cellule. Ça veut dire que si la cellule n'utilise pas le glucose, cette cellule envoie le message pour dire que je manque d'insuline, ce qui fait que l'organisme va encore stimuler la production d'insuline. On assiste comme à un cercle vicieux. Donc, il faut dire qu'à ce moment-là, trop de glucose va rester présent dans les vaisseaux et ceci entraîne l'hyperglycémie. Donc, voilà le schéma explicatif. Alors, bon, ça, je décris un peu le mécanisme de l'insulino-résistance qui est très important pour mes collaborateurs, mes jeunes collègues du Cameroun aussi. Et leur dit que l'élément clé ici, c'est ce qu'on appelle le glucose transporteur. Le glucose transporteur, c'est un élément clé dans l'insulino-résistance parce que on peut avoir l'insuline suffisamment là, et puis les récepteurs fonctionnent ou pas. Si les récepteurs ne fonctionnent pas, dans le cas d'un encombrement stérique en surcharge pondérale, l'insuline ne va pas pénétrer dans la cellule. Mais si l'insuline pénètre dans la cellule, vous voyez ici qu'à un niveau, le glucose a besoin du glucose transporteur chez une personne non diabétique. Le glucose transporteur assure donc la translocation du glucose dans la cellule et à ce moment, la cellule utilise le glucose. Dans un autre cas ici, nous avons une personne diabétique où le transporteur, il est quelque part ici, il n'est pas actif, ce qui fait que le glucose ne pénètre pas dans la cellule, ce qui fait que malgré la présence de l'insuline, on n'a pas réduction du taux de sucre dans le sang. Ce qui fait finalement, il y a une hyperglycémie persistante qui va stimuler encore la production d'insuline. Donc, il y aura hyperglycémie et hyperinsulinémie. Ça, c'est la cellule d'une personne diabétique. Ça, c'est la cellule d'une personne diabétique. Le glucose transporteur est inactif ou absent. Donc, l'insulino-résistance, le docteur Lydie l'a expliqué tout à l'heure là. Bon, il faut dire que c'est quoi en fait, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, c'est qu'un patient, l'insuline est produite au niveau du pancréas Bon, et cette insuline ne sert à rien parce que ça n'arrive pas à baisser le sucre. Mais au lieu que l'insuline baisse le sucre, il y a plutôt des messages qui sont envoyés dans le cerveau pour dire que l'insuline, le sucre manque dans la cellule. Parce que le mécanisme n'arrive pas, l'insuline n'arrive pas à faire stocker le sucre dans la cellule. Et ce qui va se passer ici, c'est que donc, il n'y a pas ce glucose transporteur n'agit pas. Il n'agit pas ici. Et vous voyez qu'ici, là, chez un sujet normal, le glucose transporteur agit parce qu'il se fixe sur la paroi membranaire et il facilite le transfert du glucose à l'intérieur de la cellule. Mais ici, il n'y a pas ce transfert du glucose à l'intérieur de la cellule. On a cherché pourquoi. Quels sont les mécanismes par lesquels il n'y a pas ce glucose transporteur? On a assimilé donc ici, on a un petit schéma qui montre l'insuline qui arrive, qui est reçue et qui est comme une clé qui va faciliter l'entrée du glucose dans la cellule. Ce qui fait que quand vous avez la clé et que le cadenas ne marche pas bien et que la serrure ne marche pas bien, soit parce que on a bouché la serrure avec des vaisseaux, ou bien il y a la rouille, bon, l'insuline ne pourra pas agir, la clé ne pourra pas agir, ce qui fait que, et maintenant, si on va à l'intérieur de la cellule et que le transporteur n'est pas actif, parce que ce transporteur doit être activé, et c'est là devant qu'on verra donc que les activateurs du transporteur sont l'oxyde nitrique et le CBD, le cannabidiol. Voilà. Donc, le schéma, si que le docteur Lydia a bien expliqué tout à l'heure, montre le rôle de l'oxyde nitrique dans la translocation du glucose. Hein. Nous voyons ici donc le glucose active au niveau de son récepteur ici un ensemble de mécanismes avec formation des tyrosine kinases et tous ces enzymes qui vont intervenir et entraîner l'activation de la nitrique oxyde synthétase avec fabrication de l'oxyde nitrique. Donc, ces mécanismes-là sont perturbés en cas de déficit d'oxyde nitrique et également en cas de diminution, d'absence des CBD. Donc, ce schéma montre le rôle du stress oxydatif dans toutes ces maladies, que ce soit les maladies neurodégénératives, le cancer, le vieillissement, les complications macro-angiopathiques et micro-angiopathiques du diabète, ainsi que les maladies cardiovasculaires. Tout se passe à partir du stress. Comme le docteur Lydie l'a dit, il y a libération des substances qui sont des radicaux libres qui vont entretenir le stress et après, ces radicaux libres vont entretenir l'inflammation. Après l'inflammation, on va évoluer vers plusieurs autres pathologies qu'on a déjà vues et qu'on continuera à voir. Donc, ce schéma montre un peu ici le rôle de la survenue de l'inflammation chez le patient dans la pathologie diabétique. Vous voyez, il y a des mécanismes en cas d'hyperglycémie qui favorisent l'augmentation de l'insuline. Il y a d'autres mécanismes qui sont en rapport avec l'insulinorésistance et la diminution de l'enzyme qui facilite la fabrication de l'oxyde nitrique et puis l'augmentation des radicaux libres, comme on l'a vu sur ce schéma. Donc, il faut dire que le diabète s'accompagne donc d'hyperglycémie et entraîne une élévation de certaines substances, dont le diacylglycérol et du PKC. Je le dis pour mes collègues qui nous écoutent, qui sont médecins. Ceci s'accompagne d'une baisse de la nitroxyde synthétase et avait pour conséquence une hausse de l'inflammation et l'insulinorésistance avec augmentation des espèces résistantes, des espèces sensibles à l'oxydation cellulaire, réactives à l'oxydation cellulaire, à l'oxygène. Comme on a dit tout à l'heure, là, c'est des radicaux libres. Donc, la physiopathologie des insulinorésistances et le rôle de l'oxyde nitrique ici, la problématique majeure dans la prise en charge du diabète, quel que soit le stade, prédiabétique ou gestationnelle demeure le problème de l'insulinorésistance, qui va associer une augmentation du taux d'insuline avec augmentation du taux de glucose et un cercle vicieux qui fait que ils vont s'entretenir en augmentation. Et alors, le défaut de translocation des transporteurs, comme on a vu tout à l'heure, là, va entraîner une baisse de captation du glucose par les cellules avec des transporteurs présents ou non en quantité dans les cellules. Donc, le glucose transporteur est intracellulaire, mais après sa stimulation, il est transloqué vers la membrane basale, c'est-à-dire à l'extérieur de la cellule. C'est-à-dire ce glucose transporteur, il va aller sous des effets des réactions chimiques, enzymatiques et autres. C'est lui qui va être activé et il va aller prendre le glucose à l'extérieur de la cellule pour le ramener à l'intérieur. Donc, il y a aussi la formation de l'oxyde nitrique sous l'effet de la nitroxyde synthétase, qui sont des précurseurs de l'oxyde nitrique, qui sont la L-citruline et la N-arginine. Donc, il faut dire que l'oxyde nitrique intervient, ça a été démontré déjà, dans la translocation de la glucose transportase, du glucose transporteur. Donc, nous verrons plus bas les mêmes mécanismes en ce qui concerne le cannabidiol. L'insulinorésistance est due à un déficit en oxyde nitrique, à l'inflammation, à l'hyperglycémie, et comme on l'a dit tout à l'heure, à l'infiltration graisseuse du foie, dont le rôle n'est pas de stocker les graisses de foie. Donc, ici, sur le plan moléculaire, c'est ce qu'on a dit tout à l'heure, là, l'intervention le rôle de l'oxyde nitrique dans la translocation par le glucose transporteur, dans la transportation du glucose par le glucose transporteur. On a vu que sur une cellule normale qui a des récepteurs à l'insuline, il y a une activation de ces récepteurs qui entraîne une série de mécanismes et de réactions chimiques aboutissant à l'activation de la nitroxyde synthétase et la production d'oxyde nitrique qui interviennent dans la translocation et l'activation du glucose transporteur. Oui. Alors, le Knox box de Socavo sur le diabète joue un rôle très important. Il contient des ingrédients tels que l'arginine et la citrulline, dont les précurseurs sont connus, qui sont connus comme des précurseurs de l'oxyde nitrique. L'organisme va les fabriquer par les deux voies qu'on a citées tout à l'heure, la voie digestive, par les aliments, c'est-à-dire les plantes, et la voie endothéliale, comme le docteur Lydie l'a dit, c'est-à-dire la production par l'endothélium de cette substance de l'oxyde nitrique. Nous avons vu dans cette présentation les mécanismes biomoléculaires d'action de l'oxyde nitrique sur le diabète et le syndrome métabolique. Donc, maintenant, en ce qui concerne le cannabidiol et le diabète, il a été démontré qu'il agit sur le système endocannabinoïde en maintenant l'équilibre fonctionnel, c'est-à-dire il maintient et régule le fonctionnement du pancréas. Comme on l'a dit, le pancréas qui est l'organe qui produit l'insuline, il régule le fonctionnement du pancréas. Il a aussi été démontré que, par certains auteurs, que le cannabidiol supprime la réponse auto-immune de la maladie, surtout dans le diabète de type 1. Parce que, comme le docteur Didier l'a dit, dans le diabète de type 1, il y a comme des anticorps qui attaquent directement le pancréas et qui détruisent les cellules bêta des islots de Langerhans, ce qui entraîne donc une baisse de sécrétion d'insuline. Et c'est ça qu'on appelle diabète de type 1. Alors que dans le type 2, il y a plutôt une augmentation de la production d'insuline du fait de l'insulinorésistance, parce que cette insuline n'agit pas dans la cellule. Donc, le CBD inhibe dans la réponse auto-immune du diabète, comme je l'ai dit. On a démontré au cours de notre présentation son rôle dans l'inflammation. On ne va pas revenir dessus. Je crois que c'était la deuxième présentation qu'on a faite ici. Il régule le taux de sucre dans le sang. Et puis, une étude portant sur 4700 patients diabétiques montre la réduction de l'insulinorésistance de 17% chez les patients sous CBD. Et cette réduction favorise quoi? Ça fait que les besoins en insuline et en médicaments vont baisser. Et les mécanismes, c'est l'homéostasie. Comme j'ai dit, l'homéostasie, c'est quoi? C'est la constance, c'est le maintien en constance des éléments du milieu intérieur, du corps. Il y a un mécanisme dans le corps. Et ça, le système endocannabinoïde aide à ce mécanisme. Ce mécanisme qui permet de maintenir constant les paramètres du corps. Le taux de sucre dans le corps, il est, je pense que le contrôle docteur dit, il est de 1 gramme par litre, bon, avec une petite variabilité en écart type. Quand il est au-delà de ça, l'organisme va réagir. C'est ça qu'on appelle l'homéostasie. La réaction de l'organisme pour maintenir certaines constances dans le milieu intérieur.
Il est 19 heures.
Voilà. Alors, ici, je vais parler maintenant de l'activation, ce que fait l'activation du CBD. Vous allez voir que l'activation du CB2 joue un rôle très important au niveau des complications sur le diabétique. Donc, tout ce que vous allez voir en orange là, la chimiotaxie, l'activation des espèces des ROS, c'est-à-dire que c'est les espèces esquives qui sont sensibles à l'oxygène et qui sont les radicaux libres. Il y a baisse de l'adhésion, il y a baisse de l'activation, il y a donc baisse des radicaux libres, en fait, baisse de l'inflammation aussi. C'est-à-dire que le CBD est activé. C'est un des récepteurs du cannabidiol. Donc, il y a aussi diminution de la transmigration, diminution de la prolifération, baisse de la fibrose. Ça veut dire, tout ça revient à quoi? Ça veut dire que les effets, ce que vous voyez là, de ce schéma montre comment le cannabidiol agit pour minimiser les complications qui sont liées au diabète. J'ai voulu mettre les mécanismes par lesquels ça se fait pour que les gens comprennent. Parce que si on vient dire ça comme ça, sans mettre le mécanisme, ça ne va pas, il y aura quand même, il y aura le doute. Donc, j'ai voulu toujours essayer de citer les auteurs et dire que des études ont été faites où il y a eu telle chose. Donc, tous ces mécanismes-ci concourent donc à minimiser les effets secondaires des complications du diabète et même réduit au maximum les complications du diabète. Alors bon, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure le docteur, en régulateur de l'appétit, le CBD va favoriser la perte de poids. Ça, c'est évident, comme on l'a dit. Ceux qui l'ont déjà pris ont ressenti. Il régule les sensations de faim et donc la survenue de diabète ainsi que ses complications. Donc, nous avons conclu en disant qu'en luttant contre l'obésité, il a un effet aussi contre le diabète. Voilà. Donc, ici, nous avons parlé de la fonction endocannabinoïde dans les tissus adipeux. Donc, on a dit, bon, ici, on a une situation qui concerne l'activation des récepteurs CB1 qui ne nous concerne pas tellement. Donc, l'activation de ces récepteurs régule la lipogénèse et va réguler l'expression des gènes et leur régulation, la régulation du glucose et de l'insuline. Donc, en fait, au niveau des mitochondries, vous voyez, ça, c'est la mitochondrie ici, là. C'est l'élément de la cellule qui produit l'énergie dans le corps. Vous avez vu tous les effets que ça aura ici, là. Et augmentation des récepteurs. Ça, c'est un récepteur qui est CB2 aussi. Et puis, il y a régulation de la lipogénèse, la régulation de la lipogénèse aussi. Donc, parallèlement, il y a augmentation du stockage du glucose dans les cellules. Vous voyez ici, là, c'est ça, l'activation de ces récepteurs. Voilà comment ça active aussi. En activant l'entrée du glucose dans la cellule, ça lutte contre le diabète, étant donné que le diabète, c'est une entrée du glucose dans le sang. Donc, et puis, si on veut parler maintenant du cannabidiol, du diabète et du foie, le foie va prendre le relais du pancréas. Quand le pancréas n'arrive plus, est excédé, c'est-à-dire par l'excès du glucose sous forme de graisse, il va donc stocker le glucose sous forme de graisse, le foie va le faire. Or, vous savez, ce n'est pas la fonction du foie principale. Donc, finalement, le foie va avoir ce qu'on appelle une infiltration graisseuse. C'est un état pré-cirrhotique. Donc, une étude multicentrique montre comment la consommation de CBD protège le foie contre l'infiltration graisseuse. Ceci en faisant quoi? En limitant l'inflammation et en bloquant la production des cytokines pro-inflammatoires. Vous voyez? Voilà. On peut dire donc ici, là, nous avons ici, au niveau biomoléculaire, il s'agit d'un schéma qui montre comment, pendant l'exercice, il y a accélération des mécanismes de stockage du glucose au niveau de la cellule. Vous avez vu là, on a le récepteur. Excusez-moi, l'activation de ce récepteur à l'insuline va entraîner quoi? Donc, va entraîner au niveau une série d'événements et de réactions chimiques et qui vont entraîner au niveau de la cellule une activation du glucose transporteur. Et c'est à ce niveau-ci ce qu'on a vu que le CBD agit aussi pour augmenter la réduction du taux de sucre dans le sang, pour accélérer le stockage du sucre dans la cellule. Voilà. Donc, c'est un peu ça. Le rôle du CBD il agit aussi pendant l'exercice en accélérant le stockage du sucre, en luttant contre l'hyperglycémie. Donc, nous avons aussi parlé ici de certains paramètres qui sont associés à la surcharge pondérale. Et on ne va pas revenir sur la densité calorique, qui est le nombre de calories qu'on a dans 100 grammes d'aliments. Et on sait que plus la densité calorique d'un aliment est faible, plus on lutte contre l'obésité et le diabète. On a aussi parlé de l'index glycémique. L'index glycémique qui définit le pouvoir glycémiant d'un aliment comparé à celui du glucose. Le pouvoir glycémiant du glucose, c'est 100. Et quand vous consommez un aliment, quelle est sa capacité à augmenter la glycémie? C'est ça qu'on appelle l'index glycémique, le pouvoir glycémiant. Ce pouvoir glycémiant, quand il est entre 0 et 35, il est faible parce qu'il peut encore être contrôlé par le pancréas. Quand il est entre 35 et 50, il est modéré. Quand il est entre 50 et 100, il est élevé. Maintenant, nous avons parlé de l'indice de potential renal acid flow, l'indice de charge rénale potentielle. Il y a aussi le phénomène d'acidité et d'alcalinisé, de base, l'équilibre acido-basique qu'il y a dans les aliments. Il faut savoir qu'il y a des aliments alcalinisants qui ont tendance à augmenter le potentiel hydrogène, c'est-à-dire qui ont tendance à être bien pour la santé. Les aliments qui sont alcalinisants. Et vous voyez les aliments acidifiants. Quand vous entendez coma acidocétosique, parce que c'est acidifiant, c'est l'acide. Quand il y a l'acide dans le corps, ce n'est pas bon. Mais les aliments, plus un aliment est alcalinisant, plus il va lutter contre l'obésité et le diabète. Les régimes sains vont associer donc, dans ce sens, un aliment avec une densité calorique faible, un index glycémique bas et un indice PRAL inférieur à 0, c'est-à-dire un aliment alcalinisant. Donc, c'est très important. Alors, vous avez vu là, on a des séries, des fiches ici où on a les séries d'aliments et leur densité calorique. Et ici, c'est les aliments avec leur pouvoir acidifiant et alcalinisant. En vert, vous avez les aliments qui sont alcalinisants. En rouge, vous avez les aliments acidifiants. Les aliments acidifiants ont tendance à entretenir l'inflammation dans le corps et dans la maladie, surtout les maladies chroniques et autres. Voilà, on continue là avec les tableaux sur l'index glycémique qui sont là, machette et tout. Et puis, bon, voilà. Quels sont les effets des produits Sokavu sur le diabète de type 2? Le rôle du Sokavu Boost. Alors, le NOS Boost de Sokavu contient des activateurs non sélectifs de la synthèse d'oxymétrique. dont les effets sur la santé ont été décrits au plus haut, mais contenant également d'autres ingrédients aux bénéfices variés. Donc, la vitamine B6, B12, C, la maltodextrinine, la folate, la méthionine, la L-méthionine, la L-glutathione, la vitamine K, D3, l'arginine, la N-acétylcystéine. Donc, et puis, toutes ces substances-là vous avez vu que l'arginine et la citrulline sont des précurseurs de l'oxyde nitrique. Alors, je vous remercie donc pour votre bien aimable attention. Merci.
Well, I didn't understand. I'm Deshelle. I'm Zane's wife and also one of the founding members of Sukavu. And I didn't understand the French portion of that, but listening to the English portion was amazing. Both of them, I'm sure, but what great information, and thank you for that. Those were really great presentations. I've got Zane still on the phone. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Zane?
Well, first is just to say thank you again to Dr. Liddy and to Dr. Raymond. We at Sukavu are very, very blessed. We're very blessed, not only to have them, but to have you on the call today. Thank you so much for showing up and being here. The products that Dr. Liddy and Dr. Raymond mentioned can change lives. It can change your life, and it can change lives of people, you know, who might be struggling with, you know, any things that are coming up. I think there's some questions that Dr. Liddy may be able to answer, and that would be great. But also just to let you know, whoever invited you to this call, if you want to figure out how you can get these products, how you could maybe even be an ambassador of these products, please reach out to whoever invited you. Please reach out to them. We would love to build our team and grow and share this message with more and more people, because when you have products that can help people and change their lives for the better, that's our vision and our goal, is to help people all across the world live better and to live unlimited. So if there are questions Dr. Liddy can answer, that would be awesome. I know there's always good questions. So
okay, the floor is open. So if there's any questions, throw them
yeah,
out.
I was gonna say, or is there anything in the chat as well,
There's
Michelle?
nothing in the chat. Nope. So
Okay.
hi,
Hello.
Jackie.
Hello.
Hi. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Dr. Liddy. Thank you, Dr. Raymond. You guys have brought it to the table. I'm so blessed to be part of it. That was a very great presentation. I want to thank you guys for the product. So I have a question. Someone asked me, because I gave them to try the product, and this person has a diabetes and was trying to say the boost was sweet. So they were concerned about the sugar, the sweetness that is on the product. So they wanted to know if it's gonna be something that will affect them with their diabetes.
So if I
can see-
can, yeah, as a Dr. Liddy, I just want to let you know, and well, I'll shut up. Sorry, I will be quiet, Dr. Liddy.
Yeah, I was actually curious about that myself because it was sweet. And I looked at the sugar content. Actually, it has like 1 gram of sugar. So that's nothing. It's not going to throw off your diabetes.
And I would say this too, the nitric oxide specifically, we worked with stevia leaf, which has a good track record with diabetes as well. We specifically
That's
did
right.
that for that reason. So
Yeah.
even though it tastes sweet, it shouldn't. It's still very low glycemic.
Yeah, it makes it just easy to take the product because we've tried nitric oxide boosting agents that are exceedingly sour, but no, you know, I had to add stevia actually to it. So this reduces my processing time. I just put a scoop in water, shake it up, and I'm done. So that's easier to use, but it's not sugar. It's a
So it's not sugar.
natural.
It's not sugar. So they shouldn't be concerned about it, right?
They should not be concerned about it. It's not sugar. It's not going to throw off their diabetes. I
All
paid
right.
attention to it myself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Not seeing anybody else.
I'll just say one other thing, if I can. This is why I love working with like Dr. Liddy, Dr. Raymond, the doctors. When we make products, we don't just willy-nilly throw it together. We try to do everything with purpose. So, you know, I mean, Dr. Liddy working with doctors and having them say, no, do it this way. You know, we don't want to add sugar. We want to have stevia is really important to us at Sukavu to make a great product that is science backed, that you can support and feel proud of and know that is good. So I appreciate, again, all the doctors who've helped me along the way to make these. And if we can make them better, we will always work on making them better. So thank you to all the doctors.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This has been a very enriching Saturday. So we appreciate your attendance and spending this time with us. We hope that you're going to go away with more knowledge and more understanding of how our bodies work, number one, and how cannabinoids and nitrous oxide and all of those products can help us live a healthier, more Kavu life. So everybody have a great Saturday or the rest of their day. I know it's getting late in other places. So we appreciate you guys all being here.
Can you just announce about our fall harvest, because a lot of people don't really attend the Monday meetings to get all this information.
I love it. Yes. So in October 9, Saturday, October 9 is when we're doing our full day fall harvest is what we call it. It's because that's when we're harvesting. That's when we've planted, we've grown through the summer, and we're starting to harvest. So we call it our fall harvest meeting. So it'll be here in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. We have on Friday, October 8, if you want to come and do tours, we're going to be touring the farm. We're going to be touring the extraction facility. So if you want to come and see how things are made, we can do that. Our warehouse, there's a couple of options that we've got going there. So that's happening. And then on Saturday all day, we'll be at a beautiful venue in Ogden, Utah, which is just outside of Salt Lake City. And we'll have training and education and fun prizes, and it'll just be very informative and lots of good information. So plan on that. So October 8 and 9. And Utah is beautiful in the fall. We're going to be at the base of the mountains. The Wasatch Mountains are gorgeous here, and the fall is the best time. In my opinion, it's my favorite season here in Utah. So it's come and enjoy it. It's beautiful.
I was going to say, and you're all invited.
You're all invited. Yep. Yeah. So we're going to have, some great speakers. We'll have catered lunch. We've got great prizes that we're going to be giving out. It's going to be good. It'll be a good event. Anything else? Great. Have a great Saturday. Yep. Tammy just mentioned in the chat, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our support. Tammy's our support. So it's support@sukavu.com. Any questions? If she can't answer it, she forwards it on to one of us who can. So start with Tammy and we can get any questions answered. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great
Thank you.
Saturday.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Jimmy.